Albaida versus Asma. I think you can guess who won.
It feels like an absolute age since the last event in Beniganim. In reality, it's been 2 weeks. 2 whole weeks. Honestly, I've aged, visibly. Mrs. Hamster hasn't said anything, which is either very kind or very worrying. They've been busy though, and by they, I mean me. School holidays kicked in straight after Beniganim. By some truly suspicious coincidence, 2 weeks off for both the virtual school and my UK-based students. 2 weeks. Simultaneously. I'm not saying it was coordinated. I'm just saying it was very, very convenient for them. Now, you might think that that means 2 weeks of relaxing by the pool. Maybe the odd trip to Gandia Beach. Nice and easy. The semi-retired runner living his best life in the Spanish sunshine. No. No, no, no. Several students have exams coming up, and the parents have had the excellent idea of booking intensive lessons over the Easter break. Intensive. Over Easter. I want to be clear that I support education wholeheartedly. I also want to be very clear that I'm completely exhausted. So, thanks for that. Which means no long, slow runs, no gentle mileage build, no meditative early morning kilometres through the orange groves, just me, Garmin, a shrinking training window, and what I can only describe as mild, sustained, and entirely professional resentment. That said, my regular, for this year, 200 kilometres per month challenge actually went okay. I ended up clocking up just over 300 kilometres for March. Well done. Which, considering March weather was doing its best impression of a moody teenager who'd been told to tidy up their room, isn't bad at all. And more importantly, I got a little bit of bling, the Reading Half Marathon medal and t-shirt. Oh, and the bonus little medal for the monthly challenge itself. Because obviously, if you don't get a medal, did it even happen? No. The answer is no. Don't be ridiculous. Of course not. Almost like if it's not on Garmin. What craziness would that be? In a couple of weeks, I'll be in London for the London Marathon. As a virtual runner. Which sounds simple, but isn't. Honestly, it isn't. There's a twist. I'll explain things closer to the time, mainly because I'm still trying to figure it out for myself. But the bib has arrived. It's sitting on the desk, staring at me. And that, right there, is the moment it all starts to feel slightly too real. Now, asthma. The asthma I mentioned last time in Beniganim has decided in the intervening 2 weeks that it hasn't just moved on, it's redecorated, put up shelves and become very comfortable. It's not worse, it's settled, established. It has, in the language of tenancy law, rights. Now, every single run starts the same way. The first couple of kilometres are and experience. Breathing becomes less of an automatic function and more of a strongly worded letter to my body. My lungs take a while to warm up, which is a polite way of saying they completely forget how to be lungs. For the first 2 or 3 kilometres, it feels like I'm trying to inhale through a coffee stirrer while jogging uphill into a gentle headwind, which, as performance strategies go, is some distance from ideal. It's one of those rare occasions where the warm-up feels like the main event, and the main event feels like a very personal test of character. I'm fairly sure that my Garmin has quietly updated its activity profiles. It no longer suggests trail run or road run. It now opens with competitive wheezing and asks if I'd like to set a personal best. Eventually, and this is the good news, things open up a little. The lungs remember their function, the breathing settles, the coffee stirrer sensation fades, and then it's actually sort of okay. But those opening kilometres, absolutely, thoroughly, repeatedly awful. Every single time. You'd think I'd be used to it by now. I'm not used to it. Weather-wise, March wasn't great, but the last couple of weeks have actually been pretty decent. Not too hot, not too cold, almost suspiciously reasonable. The kind of weather that makes you think, right, this is it, spring has arrived, the running gods are smiling. Which, of course, means this weekend, rain. Naturally, of course, obviously. The circuit is tomorrow, therefore, rain. This is not a coincidence, this is the universe maintaining balance. So, to summarise where we are, significantly undertrained, lungs still disputing the terms and conditions of their new reality, a London Marathon bib staring at me from the desk with what I can only describe as quiet menace, and a very decent chance of completing the Albaida circuit while absolutely soaking wet, wheezing professionally through the first few kilometres and pretending that it was all part of the training plan. What could possibly go wrong? Let's find out. Somewhat contrary to expectations, race day wasn't exactly warm, but miraculously there was no sign of rain. A slightly unexpected turn of events. Now, I don't mind a gentle drizzle when running, but anything beyond that becomes less refreshing and more, why am I doing this to myself? That said, Spain probably needs the rain, just preferably not during my race. I feel that's a reasonable position. Having done a longer run the day before, I wasn't planning a warm-up, but the Hamster Hounds had other ideas. So I took them for a short walk around the nearby olive groves. And then Tommy decided to join us. Tommy, for the uninitiated, is our ginger and white cat. He has no concept of personal boundaries, no interest in staying indoors when there's an expedition underway, and absolutely zero understanding of the phrase, "Not now, Tommy." So there we were. Me, 2 dogs, 1 cat, making our way through the olive groves in what I can only describe as one of the least conventional pre-race warm-ups in the history of competitive running. The other two cats who frequently join us, Charlie and Drake, I should mention, were otherwise engaged, clearly not taking race prep seriously. Some of us have standards. With evening approaching, I got my kit sorted out and headed off to Albaida, parked up and made my way to the start-finish area, which this year had moved to Plaza Mayor. A much nicer location, slightly less nice to find. Involved what I can only describe as a questionable climb up some stairs, always reassuring before a race. Nothing says you're ready quite like arriving slightly out of breath. The kids' races were just finishing and I met up with a few familiar faces. There was the usual spread of water and food laid out, carefully guarded by smiling volunteers. Now, whether they'd still be smiling if I helped myself to the cake pre-race remains an unanswered question. Not that it mattered. This would be the closest I got to the cake all evening. Yeah, standard. Meanwhile, the keen runners were out adding bonus kilometres with a warm-up. For me, 7.5 kilometres is quite enough, thanks. About 10 minutes before the start, I had a small crisis. I wasn't sure if I'd locked the car. Now, this is the kind of thought that absolutely refuses to go away. It just sits there quietly, confidently, getting louder with every passing second. So I jogged back, checked it, locked. Of course, it was locked. Jogged back to the start, so yes, unexpected warm-up achieved. Garmin probably logged it as light anxiety with intervals. Jose was warming everybody up with the usual announcements, thanking volunteers, organisers, the town hall, and then we were off. Now, Albaida is a little different from most events in the circuit. Most races take you out into the countryside, orchards, trails, dirt tracks, mountains. And when I say mountains, I mean mountains. Benicadell in particular crops up in several circuit events, like an uninvited guest who refuses to leave. If Benicadell were human, it would be convicted for crimes against humanity. Albaida stays urban. Streets, squares, the town itself, which doesn't make it harder or easier, just different. And different in this case means one very welcome thing: spectators, lots of them, almost the entire route, which when your lungs are filing complaints and your legs having a quiet word with your brain, that makes a considerable difference. So, we headed up, naturally. Cruel, but entirely predictable. The course designers clearly believe suffering should begin immediately. No easing in, no gentle introduction, just uphill. Good luck. Made it to the top of the first climb, quick downhill, looped round Plaza Mayor. By this point, my lungs, still very much disputing the terms and conditions of the new reality, were not impressed, lodging objections clearly and at some volume. We looped again and then headed down towards Aljorf. On the way down, I could see a long stream of runners coming back up. What I didn't quite appreciate at the time was how far ahead they actually were. Always a lovely discovery. Filed under things I didn't need to know just then. Through Aljorf and back up into Albaida proper. At this point I had to take a short walking break on one of the climbs, purely to give the lungs time to compose themselves. They had a lot to say. Then back into a steady run towards Consume. The route zigzagged somewhat and I completely lost my bearings, but the urban setting meant there were people everywhere. Doorways, balconies, terraces, street corners, all cheering, all very much appreciated, including, I should mention, some ex-students who were watching from the sidelines with a beer. Strong life choices there, genuinely envious. Out towards Benicadell, where I caught up with Ramon. Juan Jose, Maria and I swapped places a few times, a sort of unofficial mini-league developing with its own internal rules and absolutely no prizes. But eventually, on the uphill sections, they proved annoyingly competent. Meanwhile, I was still easing out of competitive wheezing mode, which at this point in the race felt like a full-time job. I also knew that Andres from the running group was somewhere behind me, closing probably, definitely closing, which was never a comforting thought. So I just kept plodding, head down, keep moving, don't look back. Then came a bit of a steep downhill section. At this point I fully expected a cruel right turn and another climb, because that's what the Circuit Albaida courses do. That's their nature. But no, across a roundabout, guided by a very friendly police officer who deserves a medal of his own, and onto a long steady downhill towards the finish. A rare and genuine moment of kindness from the course. I almost didn't trust it. As always, the locals were absolutely brilliant on that downhill section, cheering from balconies, doorways, terraces, bar areas, which helps enormously, especially when your lungs are still occasionally buffering. Across the line, finished, handed a drink, grabbed a towel. Albaida, to my knowledge, is the only event in the entire circuit that presents finishers with a towel. An actual proper keep it forever towel, which is a lovely touch. A genuinely thoughtful gesture, and I want to acknowledge it properly. That said, it did not make up for the cake situation. I want to be very clear about that. The towel is appreciated, the cakes missed. Both things can be true. Oranges, bananas, yes. Cake, no. Nada. Deeply disappointing, but entirely on brand. Moving on. Caught up with the group afterwards, and it was great to see Vero back after her break. Andres told me he'd been using me as a pacing target, but couldn't quite catch me. Another kilometre and he probably would have. So really, the finish line was excellently timed. As finish lines go, it arrived at exactly the right moment. No complaints. Overall, the new route is a definite improvement on last year. Still tough, still far too much uphill for my liking, still suspiciously light on cake, but a good race, a proper race. Albaida ticked off for the year. Next weekend, Belgida. I missed it last year, swept up in the chaos of the virtual London Marathon, which I ran across Oliva and Gandia itself. link in the description, by the way. So Belgida will be something of a first for the hamster. New course, new village, new opportunity to get completely lost and pretend it was all part of the plan. And fingers crossed, there's talk of the running group heading out for a meal afterwards, which, if it happens, will be a very welcome bonus after the race. Running is wonderful, but runners eating together afterwards, that's a real reward. And yes, I'm aware London is just around the corner. Friends, family, the marathon bib that's been staring at me across the desk. The meal might have to settle for second highlight of the weekend, but it's still very much on the wish list. Watch this space. Join me in Belgida. Let's see what happens. By the way, if you've actually reached this far into the video, congratulations! I'm delighted that you made it to the end. And please do consider subscribing. It makes a real difference by promoting the channel, and it's free. By the way, I'm recording new podcasts that showcase aspects of my running life, and I hope you find my rants equally amusing. My very best wishes to you, and I look forward to seeing you next time.